Meteorology. Sure, other classes might teach you about nuclear physics or electrical engineering, but here we talk about equally important things, like top 10 reasons why you should put your brain in a speaking spell. I'm your professor, Loricus the Lore Master, and with me as always are my students, Brady and Seth. Say hi, boys!
Hello, boys!
Now, today we have a very special lecture planned. A faction that's been part of Warhammer 40K for decades, but has only recently gotten its own distinct codex and armies. This faction, in my opinion, captures the feeling of gothic science fiction that 40K strives for. But before we get into that, I'd like to read you boys a little something. A reading from the Credo Omnissiah. There is no truth in flesh, only betrayal. There is no strength in flesh, only weakness. There is no constancy in flesh, only decay. There is no certainty in flesh but death. Today, boys, we'll be looking at the science of Holy Mars, aka the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Hell yeah.
Wow. I'm intrigued.
Loricus, that beautiful hymn as an introduction is, it has piqued our interest.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Definitely.
Now, to understand the history of the tech priests, we first need to understand Mars. Back during the age of technology, before people started sprouting horns and doing space magic, scientists had figured out a way to terraform Mars. Using advanced science, they managed to give the red planet a stable atmosphere and the ability to sustain complex life, like plants, animals, and, of course, people. Mars was the first step to humanity's interstellar expansion, and acted as a symbol for what we could achieve with the power of science. Mars made a name for itself by mining the iron-rich planet and using complex factories to build all kinds of important technology, from giant robots to toasters. But after the Age of Strife saw the old Terran powers collapse, various factions waged bloody war for ownership of the planet. These factions used every weapon at their disposal, from psychic powers to just straight-up nukes. And the superweapon showdown eventually reverted the rich green planet to its old, barren, irradiated state, undoing literal centuries of work.
Wow.
This is the future that
I was gonna say,
Elon wants.
Yeah, leave it to anything, even in the same solar system as Earth, to just blow itself to smithereens.
With Mars reduced to an irradiated wasteland and its native residents living in compounds underground, it seemed like Mars would become yet another dead planet. But one of the factions that stood victorious over the others seized the fate of Mars in their metal hands. Enter the mechanicum! The mechanicum was a strange sect of monks who believed that all machinery was endowed upon humanity by the machine god. In their eyes, everything from the colossal titan to the humble toaster was a tangible extension of their god's divine will. Even the act of maintaining a machine was seen as an act of Holy Communion. This also meant that they knew a lot about how old tech worked, which was a vital skill. So vital, in fact, that their collective tech know-how allowed them not only to return Mars to a relatively livable state, but even spread out colony ships to establish new worlds and harvest old ones for valuable tech.
Just imagine, like, some old redneck down here on Earth, like, you want to know what's better than twin smokestacks coming out of the bed of your diesel? Nothing. It's like I saw God in an 8-cylinder engine today.
So were there other, races or colonies of people on Mars?
There were lots of different colonies and factions on Mars. And a lot of them went to war after the Age of Strife kicked off. The Mechanicum are just the ones that succeeded.
They're just the victors who went to history.
So some wiped out, or were they factions that we know of right now?
Most were wiped out, but again, we don't know too much about the Age of Strife, other than that techno-barbarians were a thing.
Right, and the Age of Strife. The Age of Strife was when robots kind of rose up, and the AI...
It was when AI and robots rose up, and also when psychic phenomenon really started making it hard to live on any given planet, because people were starting to manifest as psychers, and demons were kind of just pouring out of every hole.
Gotcha. Okay, so the Mechanicus, they won Mars, and then they started expanding in search of technology.
The Mechanicum knew just about all there was to know about old pre-Strife tech, and they leveraged that technology to gain even more power and influence in the galaxy. It wasn't long before they had a complete monopoly on building, maintaining, or repairing anything more complicated than a pointy stick. And nobody could really go against them either. How do you fight someone you have to rely on to keep your oxygen supply or your water purifiers running? And then the Emperor started to take things over. Now, the Emperor hated religion. So much so that the first thing he did when he took over Terra was destroy every cult, church, or temple he could find. But when the time came for him to deal with the machine-worshipping mechanicum, this superhuman psychic warrior with a massive army sat down with the priests of Mars and said, "Okay, let's make a deal." Thus was signed the Treaty of Mars. This pact allowed the mechanicum to freely practice their faith. In exchange, they would help the Emperor maintain the technology vital to his conquest.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that though. He's like, he's like, F you. You guys
Wait a
you
minute.
guys get to stay. Like,
It's almost like they have power over the Imperium. Like, if
Yeah.
they really wanted to stretch
which is
it,
so interesting to me.
like, I feel like that could lead to a lot of problems and, like, disagreements.
I want problems, always.
The mechanicum basically became an empire within an empire. The Emperor would expand his reach, conquering new worlds, and the mechanicum would be there every step of the way, studying lost technology and maintaining the war machines for the new Imperium. But because they were so closely linked to the Imperium, they also suffered just as badly when Horus and his chaos-worshipping buddies kicked off their civil war. When Horus turned on the Emperor, the mechanicum under his service followed suit. When Perturabo started looking into ways to cram demons into technology, the mechanicum he worked with were there helping out. These rogue tech priests were dubbed the Dark Mechanicum, and their close relationship with Horus and his brothers meant that when Horus was killed off and the Chaos cults retreated into the Eye of Terror, the Dark Mechanicum followed them there.
Oh.
So basically, like, both the Imperium and the Adeptus Mechanicus have, dark counterparts in the warp.
Exactly, and the Dark Mechanicus is where we get a lot of demon engines, and it's where Lord Discordants are trained.
Oh, so like from when demons get attached, the factory world in Korn's domain. So like the Dark Mechanicum are the people who do that.
Exactly.
That's cool. Okay. It's all coming together.
And our mechanicums, whatever, are they able to rise through the power rankings of the Chaos Demons, or are they more there to serve the Astartes legions?
They more or less are kind of their own thing, but over time, in narrative, they tend to be regulated to roles as servants for Chaos Marines.
Dang. Because I would really like to see a demon
dark
prince.
Demon Prince of Dark Mech.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
When the dust of the Horus Heresy settled, the Mechanicum took a more official role in running the Imperium, becoming part of the very fabric of Imperial society, and even getting their own branch of the Imperial government. After their fallout with the Dark Mechanicum, they dubbed themselves the Adeptus Mechanicus to avoid being associated with that radical sect. This was a wise move in the long run, what with the cult of the God Emperor burning anyone they dubbed a heretic. Leave it to the tech guys to use a rebrand to shrug off past misdeeds, huh?
Sounds familiar.
Right? I feel like we've read that story before.
The Mechanicus are, above all, a religion, and religions have dogma, laws, commandments, and ideals. So, what do the Adeptus Mechanicus really believe? Well, like some real-world religions, the Mechanicus believe in a sort of holy trinity, three distinct forces that are in fact intrinsically linked aspects to a single divinity. The first is the machine god itself. To the Mechanicus, all knowledge is ultimately an extension of the machine god. Learning something, whether it be math, physics, history, or science, is an act which brings one closer to this god. The second part of the Trinity is the idea of the Omnissiah, the physical manifestation of the machine god, a sort of living embodiment of all knowledge and understanding. The Mechanicus tend to equate the God Emperor with the Omnissiah, but there's some contention on whether or not they truly believe this, or whether they propagate this idea to keep the Ministorum and the Inquisition off their backs. Finally, there's the motive force. The motive force is believed to be the source from which all motion in life springs. Everything from the laws of physics to the systems that make your heart beat are expressions of the motive force.
That's interesting. That's like you said, it's like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You got the Father, who's like actual God, and then you've got the Son, which is God God's manifestation on earth in physical form, Jesus. And then you have the Holy Ghost, which I don't know if anybody knows exactly what the Holy Ghost is, but it's everything everywhere else, which is kind of interesting.
Is there ever any like depictions of like the Omnissiah or the Machine God?
The most common and ubiquitous depiction is the classic skull in the cog, but we're not quite sure whether or not this is an actual depiction of the Machine God or just sort of a symbol. Another important element of the Mechanicus faith is what's called the quest for knowledge. See, the Mechanicus believe that all knowledge in the universe already exists in some physical form. Everything's already written down or archived somewhere, you just gotta dig it up. And it's only a matter of time until we find every last book or template out there. Then we'll know everything. At least that's what they think. But there's a problem with this idea. Because they believe it's just a matter of finding someone else's notes on the subject, the Mechanicus do almost no real scientific research or discovery on their own. And forget about inventing new technology. That'd just be spitting on the knowledge that already exists. So for all their tech worshipping, the Mechanicus is actually pretty stagnant. Granted, there are still Mechanicus out there, doing scientific research and pushing forward with new ideas like Belisarius' Call, but they're few and far between, as the Mechanicus can be just as harsh on tech heresy as the cult of the Emperor can be on stuff like chaos worship.
Okay, so I originally thought they were like science research, or no, religious researchers, but it seems like I don't really like them as much because honestly, they are traditional technology people, and like, how can you be both?
How can you be for progress and like the advancement of knowledge while also not wanting to discover new knowledge?
It's. I think it's the idea that it's all out there already is their downfall because they feel like they don't need to do anything. But it is interesting because Belisarius is just like actively actually doing research.
Like, nah, miss me with that.
So I feel like that would show that there is stuff still.
Obviously, there's things no one thought of.
Yeah, so interesting.
Mechanicus also believe that sentience is something only the Machine God can grant, which means things like artificial intelligences are abominations, which need to be destroyed. But Loricus, you rippling Adonis, I hear you ask, if Mechanicus hate AI so much, how come all the art and minis show them hanging out with robots and stuff? Well, first off, thank you, I've been working out. Also, those aren't robots. See, the Mechanicus believe there's no computer better than the human brain. So, if they need a machine to quickly carry out a complex task, they'll just find someone nobody will miss, scoop out their brains, and plug them into whatever they need. Sometimes they'll just take people, lobotomize them, and bolt mechanical limbs onto them. These bionic war crimes are called Servitors, and the Mechanicus use them for just about everything, from hauling chemicals to carrying books. For smaller jobs, they'll stick to servo skulls, which are basically just someone's cranium, gray matter included, with specialized mechanical limbs and a propulsion system strapped on. Most Mechanicus nowadays use clones for this, but more than a few prefer their materials for Servitors be, free range, as it were. Now, they try to justify this by saying that the non-clone Servitors were criminals, but remember that worshipping the wrong god or complaining about your factory job may as well be a criminal offense, so that's not much comfort.
I feel so weird about this one, because it's like, I understand the idea that artificial intelligence bad, but what is artificial intelligence?
But it's also like, if the machine god can only... it's so interesting, right? Because if the machine god is the only thing that can grant sentience,
right,
and artificial intelligence gained sentience, aren't they, by their own doctrine, literally going against their core belief, which is that only the machine god can grant sentience? Like, you killed all the sentient things that were machines.
Yeah, hey, it's almost like religious dogmatism leads to hypocrisy and oppression, huh?
Why can't we have one good religion?
I know,
Loricus?
why can't any of them make sense?
Yeah.
the amount of cognitive dissonance required for an entire group of people to be like, yeah, we know we go against everything we stand for, but you shut up.
I want an unrealistic religion here. Come on, this is 40K.
I want one that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's always the greater good.
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
With the Tau.
I'm gonna go to my grave believing that Tzeentch is behind it, even if they don't write it
Behind the
in.
Tau. Right.
Even if they don't write it in.
Games Workshop may yet vindicate you.
So, we know that the Mechanicus value machinery, knowledge, and the power of the human sentience. But here's the problem with human sentience. It has an expiration date. And the Mechanicus have a bit of a saying. The flesh is weak! But don't you worry, the Mechanicus have a solution for the frailty of your flesh. Bionics! That's right. By simply replacing every part of your meat body with some mechanical equivalent, you too can overcome the failings of your pitiful corporeal existence. This practice is vital to the Mechanicus religion, and rising through the ranks of the clergy almost always comes with some bionic upgrade. Most high-ranking priests are basically just brains crammed into mechanical bodies. And sometimes, it's not even just one brain. There's a special Mechanicus implant called the binary cortex, which sees two priests with similar goals literally putting their heads together by cramming their brains into the same body. It's like having a roommate, but you're sharing a nervous system.
I do think they scream at one another about who hasn't done the dishes.
Yeah.
But seriously though, can you even imagine inhabiting the same body as another consciousness?
No.
It would be the worst.
Yeah.
Like, I have people that I love dearly, like my wife. If we were in the same body, I would kill her.
I don't think there's any person ever that I'd be okay with sharing a body with.
Nope.
But also just...
Do you think only one of them has to pee at a time?
Okay.
Now, eagle-eyed lorehounds might notice something strange here. A dedication to the natural sciences, a need to replace parts of your organic body with mechanical pieces, a general disdain for the warp and its spooky magic nonsense. Doesn't this seem familiar, boys?
Yes.
Now, lore expert, I am not. But are we talking?
I know.
Are
I
we
know what he's
talking?
talking
Are we
about.
talking Necrons here?
That's right! This all seems eerily reminiscent to the Necrons. You know, those 65 million year old techno-skeletons? But surely that's gotta be a coincidence, right? Well, maybe not. See, the Mechanicus, like any religion, have their fair share of doctrines and subcults that believe different things. One of those doctrines calls themselves the Cult of the Dragon. The Cult of the Dragon believes that hidden deep beneath the surface of Mars, beneath an abandoned network of tunnels called the Noctis Labyrinth, lies a Tesseract Vault, a sort of stable pocket dimension in which the Necrons stored the fragments of their soul-hungry star gods, which enslaved their people. Hidden within that vault, there stirs one such god, dormant, dreaming, vengeful. This slumbering god of metal, fire, and machinery is known as the Void Dragon. Of course, this may all just be the ramblings of some renegade cult of tech heretics, but if it's not true, then why did a squad of Necrons appear on Mars as if from nowhere? And why did they destroy a large portion of the Noctis Labyrinth before being stopped by the Mechanicus' forces? Perhaps a dragon truly does sleep beneath the Red Planet. And when it wakes, what fresh horrors could it visit on Mars, or its neighbor, Earth? Only time will tell.
Ooh.
Dang.
Another god, maybe?
Okay.
So, what I'm hearing is that this god is going to appear and want to destroy Mars, Earth, the universe.
Everything.
And you know what? Everyone's going to have to band together. Work together to defeat the god.
This is the thing that's finally going to create peace and harmony in the 40K universe.
I'm sure of it.
Some slumbering god deep inside of Mars.
Yep, that's what it is.
Interesting.
I don't know, because, like, if Chaos couldn't do it,
That's fair.
what is a
That's
dragon
fair,
that
yeah.
nukes her to... Yeah. But I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today's lecture. What did you think? Did we miss anything? What's your favorite piece of Mechanicus lore? And if you could replace any part of yourself with bionics, what would it be and why? And what faction, character, or event should we cover next? Let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button to offer prayer to the Omnissiah, and invoke the right of subscription to gain favor with the dragon beneath. And before we go, if you must take anything from this lecture, let it be this. The only thing worse than losing your job to a machine is being treated like one. Class dismissed!